So guess what? The sanctions being put against the country of Iran are not going to work. Why do I believe the sanctions deployed by the President of the United States and Mr. Bessonette not going to work? I'll tell you why. See, you have a country who produces about 4.4 million barrels a day under normal circumstances. They consume about 2.59 million barrels of the 4.4 million barrels. They basically have about 1.25 to 3 million barrels a day that is excess barrels they do not consume inside the country of Iran. Now, if you think about it pure from a mathematical standpoint, if oil's at $55 or $60 a barrel, the remaining oil that they sell generates revenue for their country. So they really have two ways of offsetting the sanctions. The first and foremost is they begin to trade in terms of not dollars, they trade in terms of bartering. And what they do is they look at their aligned partners, which is Russia, China, and North Korea, and other countries that are not necessarily aligned with the United States. They say, look, we're going to have sanctions. We're going to have limitations on what we can export. We're going to be in this for another year or 2 years, just like we have been for the last 15 years. So because we've experienced sanctions, because we've pretty much been a pariah and isolated for the last decade and a half, what really is taking place is they said, we know what to do to get around those sanctions. We know how to trade with other countries to get what we want in terms of food and technology and raw materials, because a lot of that is not going to be sanctioned. It's not going to be tied to dollars. It's going to be tied to future commitments, trading like bartering. I can assure you the Iranian government is sitting down today saying, look, we have 209 billion barrels in reserves. We've got some ridiculous number. It's like 34 trillion cubic feet of gas. So we have gas for LNG export. We have tons of crude oil we can produce. We have a certain level that we've been kind of producing because of the sanctions the last 10 or 15 years. But if it really boils down to it, we're essentially using about 62% of the oil we produce for internal consumption. So if we're limited on our production, then we simply constrain the internal consumption, and then we tell our outside partners, hey, look, I can't trade for dollars. It can't go through the bank. Even if we have a shadow fleet, we have shadow banking, shadow financing sources, what we're going to do is trade you. You go ahead and make sure we get plenty of food and water and get lots of supplies and raw material. And what we have is an IOU. Now remember, we were trying to establish an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. And as I said in my previous commentary about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I said the MOU is worthless. It'll never work. I was right. An MOU is a Memorandum of Understanding. An IOU says, I owe you money, or I owe you something in exchange for something you're going to give me. It's a promise to pay in the future. Well, you can assure yourself that China says, Iran, we're going to support you. We're going to do it in a very devious way, and we're going to be very limited in the exposure and the transparency of how we're going to help you. But we're going to help you with drones. We're going to help you with supply and food and ammunition and other raw materials that we manufacture and make in China that we can get in through the land, through the ocean, from other ports and other ways and means that cannot be sanctioned. They cannot be found. They cannot be discovered. They will not be part of the sanction program. What you're going to do in exchange is you're going to give us future oil reserves. So China could literally lock in, let's say another, 300 to 500 million barrels of oil that's going to be given to them over the next 5 to 10 years at a price, let's call it $35 a barrel. They're going to lock in a price and say, we will help you and we will give you the things you need to run your country. Why the United States has all these sanctions employed. And what we're going to do is expect you to deliver to us sometime over the next 5 or 10 years. We're going to look for 300, 600 million barrels of oil at a preset price. What does that do? That assures China they're going to be able to refill their reserves, because right now they're taking 3 to 5 million barrels out of the reserves every day, according to the numbers that I looked at. China's saying we're going to use the reserves that we built up during COVID. We're going to use and consume what we already have bought. It takes pressure off the demand in the global crude oil market. Less demand means lower prices, which is why we're at $83 today. And what we're going to do is promise to help you, like Russia, like North Korea, get the things that you need to defend yourself and stay in the same position you're in until President Trump is out of office. What we want you to do is give us a IOU. You're going to owe China and those that help you. You're going to owe us an exchange or barter, which is the crude oil that you have an abundance of. And whenever this whole thing levels off, next year, 2 years, 3 years from now, you're going to take 3 or 4 million barrels a day and you're going to owe us 1 million barrels a day. And we've already prepaid for it. We prepaid for it at $35 a barrel, and we're going to take it in exchange for a barter. Now, look, folks, you think I'm just exaggerating this. Put yourself in the positions. What would you do? You have the greatest military power in the world that can basically annihilate your Navy, your Army, and every other kind of military aspect you have, an asset you have inside your country. Crude oil is the one thing that Iran has more than the United States. It has an abundance of oil. They have a very low production cost. They need about 60% of what they produce just to run their country. But if they get squeezed, they just tell their people and the civilians in the country, guess what? We're going to limit your driving and electricity and food and transportation. We need to squeeze 500,000 to 1.5 million barrels a day out of our own consumption, which now gives us plenty that we can sell, and it also reduces the pressure on our country. But we need food and products and raw material. We got other businesses that we run inside of Iran that are not subject to the sanction. So what we're going to do there is we're going to barter for it. I believe that what the Iranian regime already figured out is that the first time they get pressure, the United States was going to do extreme sanctions. And the way they're going to avoid those extreme sanctions is they've already set up transactions and bartering and exchanges for crude oil in the future at discounted prices to assure themselves they can outlast any sanctions, any blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, and they can outlast President Trump, whose term is over in about 28 months. Now, I want to assure you, each and every one of you, the price we're seeing today at $83 a barrel, that is not reflective of the price or the value of crude oil with the amount of destructive supply that has taken place. We are in this at a much higher price for much, much longer than anyone's telling you. And that's my personal belief looking at the data.